What is up, team? Okay, today we are going to talk about eating enough and how it can positively impact your sleep. This is something that I will say most of my clients, when they start working with me and I get them eating an adequate amount of food, even if they're trying to make body composition changes, we start getting them good food and we are focused and intentional on when they're eating what, especially talking about how nutrition impacts sleep. And all of a sudden, I have sleepers who were getting 6 hours of crappy sleep, getting 8 hours of amazing sleep. Now, we have to understand that your brain and body require energy while you sleep, and we get energy from the foods that we eat, right? Your brain and body need food to be able to keep you breathing, your heart pumping, recover from fitness if we are exercising, and we need that food to make the hormones that our body uses to keep us sleeping. It's super, super important. If we don't get enough food, people can have something called nocturnal hypoglycemia. So you can experience symptoms of your blood sugar dropping because our brain uses glucose when we sleep to keep us asleep and to, again, make all of those hormones to facilitate that sleep process. So you might have experienced, if you were in a dieting cycle, irritability upon waking, bad dreams, night sweats, crying or yelling during sleep. These are things that actually happen fairly often with women, especially because women tend to be very sensitive to when they're not getting enough carbohydrates. So what does eating for sleep look like? This is something that is going to be somewhat individualized, but there are going to be some general rules for all people because we are all mammals. We just have some uniquenesses with digestion and likes and dislikes. First, we are going to cover real fast that when you eat before bed, if we are talking about having a snack intentionally for sleep, eating before bed does not make you gain weight, and it is not necessarily bad for you. Now, with that, I'm going to tell you that you can't take that last statement that it's not bad for me and that it won't make me gain weight and go and eat an entire pizza right before sleep. Because you are in a reclined position, your body has a harder time digesting when we're laying down, right? If you've ever experienced like going to and having a nap after you've eaten a really big meal, it can stay sitting in your stomach and it can cause heartburn. It's also, our body wants to be able to prioritize sleep. So we're intentional with what we're putting in our body to get a good night's rest, but we're not asking our body to do two major processes at once. We don't want it to be trying to sleep and help us restore and also digest a big meal. So you can't be having a huge meal right before you go to bed, but we're going to talk about what you can do to get a snack in specifically for sleep. So eating enough and eating for sleep, it helps your brain to make melatonin, which is a hormone we know that's extremely important to get a deep sleep, to stay asleep. Eating enough helps you get deep sleep, not only because it helps produce melatonin, but it helps other processes as well, which we're just starting to discover. We're just starting to appreciate the positive impact of good nutrition relative to sleep. It helps you stay asleep, and eating enough for sleep, eating enough overall helps your body replenish its glycogen stores, which glycogen is the storage form of carbohydrates. And we do need some carbs in our bodies. Carbs are converted to glucose. So the glycogen is stored in our muscles and our liver, and it's the just in case if I ate the banana and I need more glucose or more carbs than just the banana provides. My body will take from that glycogen. And during sleep, when we've eaten adequate amounts, our body has the opportunity to replenish those glycogen stores in a rested state, because while we do use some glucose while we're sleeping, we don't use as much as when we're awake. So as I mentioned earlier, I don't want you eating a whole pizza before you go to bed, but I highly encourage, especially if you're a woman and especially if you have a hard time sleeping, having an intentional snack before you go to bed. So this is typically, I'm having you eat something 30 to 60 minutes before you go to sleep. We want it to be carbohydrate rich because women do better with a higher carb diet. Also, because our brain does like carbohydrates, and if it has a steadier supply, it doesn't have to use any of the glycogen that we may have stocked up, because that's what's going to happen. One of the reasons that our glycogen stores will be low in the morning is if we didn't eat enough. Our body has to use some of that glycogen throughout the night to facilitate staying asleep. So if we have a carbohydrate-rich snack before we go to bed, we give our brain what it needs and we give our body what it needs. Bananas are always my go-to. So bananas are high in the amino acid tryptophan. Tryptophan is used to make serotonin. Serotonin is a precursor for melatonin. So if you are having something with a lot of tryptophan in it before you go to bed, you're setting your brain up to be able to make as much melatonin as it needs. So rather than taking melatonin, we can eat what we need to make it. Now, there is a side note to that. I'm not going to get too deep into the science, but we have this thing called the blood-brain barrier. It's a barrier that's created between the rest of our body and our brain to make sure that not everything can get into our brain, because we have lots of like bacteria and viruses that are actually running around our bodies all the time, right? So our brain is the most important thing. It's your computer, if you will. When you eat something, there are certain amino acids that get to pass through the blood-brain barrier, and tryptophan is one of them. But they all go at the same time. So your brain doesn't like go, oh, I need more tryptophan, I'm going to pick that out. Our brain goes, oh, there's a whole bunch of amino acids I need, I'm going to let them all in. So if you eat something that is high protein before you go to bed, while it has some tryptophan in it, it also has other amino acids in it. So if we can get something that is high in tryptophan, but not high in the other protein sources, now we get to prioritize what our brains need specifically for what we're trying to do, which is get a good night's sleep. That's why I suggest eating a banana, papaya, some kind of high tryptophan fruit, which you can Google that, or you can have things like oatmeal cereal. Now, the caveat to that is the casein protein. Casein protein is a slow release protein. So if I eat my turkey, which is high in tryptophan, but it's high in a bunch of amino acids, they all go through my system at once, right? It's not a slow release protein. Whereas casein takes a while to digest. So your body doesn't have to fight off or fight for access to one specific amino acid. I said I wasn't going to get too deep into it, and I did. Sorry. Now, the other thing, you will see on here, I have Rice Krispie treat. Some of us are very sensitive to sugar, and eating something higher sugar before bed might give you too much energy, and some of us do really well with a higher sugar content. You can play around with it. I recommend slower release carbs, so more on the oatmeal, low glycemic index things, but having a moderately sweet treat before you go to bed, as long as you brush your teeth after, is okay. And then, lastly, finding a system that works for you is the most important thing. So these are some general guidelines that I gave you. There are some general rules that we all typically follow. I have yet to find someone who does really well eating gummy bears before bed. I've also yet to find someone who does really well eating an entire pizza before bed. After that, then we talk about what foods serve you the best. When can you eat them? When do you feel the best eating them? What does your digestion feel like? What is the quality of sleep? And we want to track that so you see how this all can positively impact your quality, your duration, and what you feel like the next day. All right. I hope you got some tidbits from this. Hit us up if you have any questions, and we look forward to showing you what eating enough can do for one of the most important things that we do in life, which is get a good night's sleep.